Have you ever noticed how money stress doesn't just stay in your wallet? It follows you into your day, into your sleep, into your confidence, and honestly, into your English, too. Because when you're worried about money, you don't feel calm, you don't feel open, you don't feel relaxed enough to speak, you get tight, you overthink, you start playing defense in every part of life. And maybe you've had this exact moment. You're in a meeting and someone casually says something like, "Can we afford that?" Or, "What's the budget?" Or, "Let's talk numbers." And suddenly your brain goes blank. Not because you don't understand, not because you're not smart, but because money is emotional. Money has pressure. Money has fear attached to it. And when fear shows up, fluency drops. So today I want to talk about 6 money habits that keep people stuck and how to break them. Not in an abstract, motivational poster kind of way, in a real life way. The kind of habits I've seen in friends, in students, in coworkers, and in myself at different points. Because getting unstuck with money is often less about math and more about patterns, automatic behaviors, the little choices you repeat without noticing. And when you change those patterns, you don't just get better with money. You start to feel more capable, more stable, more confident. And that confidence shows up when you speak English too, because you're not carrying that constant low-level anxiety. And one more thing before we jump in. If you're listening to this as an English learner, you're in a perfect place. Money is one of the most useful, real-world topics you can practice in English. You can use these ideas to build natural vocabulary and natural thought patterns. Because in real life, people talk about money all the time, but usually indirectly. They don't always say, "I am stressed about my finances." They say, "I'm trying to be more careful lately," or "I'm cutting back," or "things are tight right now," or "I'm trying to get ahead." If you can understand that kind of language and feel comfortable using it, you're going to feel more natural in everyday conversations. And real quick, if you like this style of episode, go ahead and subscribe so you don't lose me. And if something I say hits a little too close to home, in a good way, leave a comment about what you struggle with. Seriously, I read those, and it also helps other people realize they're not alone. And if you know someone who's trying to improve their English and also trying to get their life a little more under control, share this with them. All right, let's get into it. The first habit that keeps people stuck is living in denial. And I don't mean denial in a dramatic way like someone is pretending they don't have bills. I mean the quiet, everyday denial that sounds like, "I'll check later. I'll deal with it next week. I don't want to look. I don't want to open that app. I don't want to see the number." I've had students tell me they're afraid to check their bank account. And that might sound strange if you've never felt it, but it's real. Because checking the number means facing reality. And if reality feels painful, your brain tries to protect you by avoiding it. The problem is avoidance doesn't protect you. It just delays the stress and usually makes it worse. If you don't look, you can't steer. It's like driving a car and refusing to look at the dashboard because you might see the fuel light. Breaking this habit is surprisingly simple, but it's not always easy. It's about building the skill of looking, not judging, not panicking, just looking. In plain English, the phrase I use is, "Let me see where I'm at," not, "Let me see how badly I messed up." Just, "Let me see where I'm at." That language matters because the way you talk to yourself changes how your body feels. And when your body feels calmer, you make better decisions. A practical way to break denial is to create a tiny routine that's almost too easy. Something like, every Monday morning, I check my accounts for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, not a full budget spreadsheet, not a deep analysis, just a quick look. The goal is to become the kind of person who faces reality regularly. That alone can change everything. And by the way, this connects directly to English fluency. Because so many adult learners do the same thing with speaking. They avoid it, they delay it. They say, I'll start speaking when I feel ready. But you don't get ready first. You get ready by doing it. You become calm by facing the thing, gently, repeatedly. The second habit is spending to soothe your emotions. This is the habit a lot of people don't want to admit because it can sound shallow. But it's not shallow at all. It's human. You're tired, you're stressed, you're lonely, you're bored, you're overwhelmed, and you want a quick emotional shift. So you buy something, you order food, you upgrade something that doesn't need upgrading, you shop online and tell yourself it's a reward. And sometimes it is a reward. I'm not here to tell you never buy anything fun. That's not real life. But the habit that keeps people stuck is when spending becomes your main emotional tool. When it's your way to handle stress instead of dealing with the stress itself. I've seen this with students who work in a second language all day. Imagine how exhausting that is. You're translating, you're trying to sound professional, you're trying not to make mistakes. Then you get home and your brain is fried. And in that moment, it's so easy to say, I deserve this. And you do deserve comfort. You do deserve rest. The question is whether spending is the only way you know how to give yourself comfort. To break this, you need to notice the moment before you spend. That moment when you reach for your phone, open an app, and start scrolling. That moment is powerful. Because if you can pause right there and ask yourself, what am I actually needing right now? You start building a different habit. Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's connection. Sometimes it's a break. Sometimes it's food. Sure, but food you already have. Sometimes it's just a walk. In natural English, a phrase you can practice is, I'm about to buy this, but I think I'm just stressed. Or, I'm not actually craving the item, I'm craving relief. That's such a real sentence. And even if you never say it out loud to someone else, saying it inside your head in English is a great way to start thinking in English. Because it's connected to real emotion, and emotion helps language stick. The third habit is not knowing where your money is going because you're leaking cash in small ways. And this is a big one because it doesn't feel like a problem day to day. It feels like normal life. A coffee here, a delivery fee there, a subscription you forgot about, a random online purchase because it was on sale. And none of it looks dangerous by itself. But when people feel stuck, it's often because of these small leaks. Not because they're irresponsible, because they're busy, because they're tired, because everything is designed to be convenient and automatic. Here's what I've noticed in my own life and with other adults. We don't usually ruin our finances with one big decision. We do it with 1,000 tiny decisions we barely remember making. Breaking this habit doesn't require becoming extreme or strict. It requires awareness and one simple choice. You pick one leak and you plug it. Just one, not 10. One. Maybe you cancel one subscription. Maybe you set a limit on delivery. Maybe you decide you're not doing random online shopping during the week. When you do that, you start to feel control, and control creates confidence. And for English, notice the kind of phrases people use when they talk about this habit. They say, I'm trying to cut back. They say, I'm watching my spending. They say, I'm trying to be more mindful. They say, I didn't realize how much it adds up. That phrase, it adds up, is so common and so useful. It adds up. A little here and a little there, and suddenly it's a lot. The fourth habit is waiting for a perfect plan before you start. This is perfectionism, but in money form. People say, I need to learn more first. I need the perfect budgeting method. I need the perfect app. I need the perfect system. Then I'll start. But what happens in real life? You spend weeks researching, watching videos, reading advice, and you feel productive, but nothing changes. Because learning feels safe. Action feels risky. This is exactly what happens with English, too. Adults will say, I'm still studying. I'm still preparing. I'm still building vocabulary. And that's fine, but at some point, preparation becomes procrastination. Not because you're lazy, because you're protecting yourself from the discomfort of doing the thing imperfectly. Breaking this habit means choosing a messy plan that works now. Something simple, like I'm going to pay my bills on time, track my spending once a week, and put a small amount into savings every payday. That's it. Is it perfect? No. Is it powerful? Yes, because it's real. In English, there's a phrase I love: progress over perfection. It's common, and it's true, but I want you to feel it in a practical way. When you do a plan that's 80% good and you repeat it, you'll beat the person who does a perfect plan for 3 days and quits. The fifth habit is using debt like it's income. This is a tough one, and I want to talk about it gently because people end up here for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's an emergency, sometimes it's medical, sometimes it's supporting family, sometimes it's just the cost of living, and sometimes it's a slow drift where you start relying on credit because it's easier than facing the gap. The habit that keeps people stuck is when debt becomes normal spending power. When the credit card stops being a tool and starts being your lifestyle. That's when it gets heavy. That's when it feels like you can't breathe. Breaking this habit usually starts with telling the truth about what you can afford. And that sentence, what can I actually afford, is a strong sentence. A mature sentence. Not a shame sentence. Because you're not saying I'm a failure. You're saying I'm making decisions based on reality. One shift that can help is separating what you want from what you can handle right now. You might want a nicer apartment. You might want a newer car. You might want to travel. None of those wants are bad. But if the timing is wrong, the pressure will follow you. And it's hard to speak confidently in any language when you feel financial pressure all the time. A really real-life example. I've known people who couldn't fully enjoy a vacation because they were thinking about the credit card bill the whole time. They were physically in a beautiful place, but mentally they were trapped. That's what I mean by stuck. In English, people often say, I'm trying to get out of debt. They say, I'm paying it down. They say, I'm digging myself out. That phrase, digging myself out, is very emotional. It sounds like you were in a hole and you're climbing out. And that's how it feels. The good news is, if you keep paying it down, you do climb out. It's slow, but it's real. The sixth habit is never building a cushion. Never building that little layer of protection between you and life. Because life is going to happen. Your car will need repairs. A family member will need help. You'll get sick. Your hours will get cut. Something will break. It's not pessimism, it's reality. People stay stuck when every surprise becomes a crisis. Not because they did something wrong, but because there's no buffer. And when there's no buffer, you live in a constant state of reacting. And reaction mode makes it almost impossible to plan, to invest in yourself, or to feel confident. Breaking this habit often starts tiny. It might be saving a small amount consistently, even if it feels almost ridiculous. Even if it's $20, even if it's 10, the amount matters less than the identity you're building. You're becoming the kind of person who pays themselves first, even in a small way. You're becoming the kind of person who prepares, not panics. And again, this connects to English so clearly. Confidence in speaking is like a cushion. When you have some extra words, some extra phrases, some extra practice, you don't panic when you forget one word. You have a buffer. You can work around it. You can rephrase. You can keep going. Now, I want to zoom out for a minute, because if you heard these habits and you felt a little uncomfortable, that's normal. And if you felt guilty, I want to stop that right now. Guilt is not a strategy. Shame doesn't build a better life. It just makes you hide. And hiding is how people stay stuck. What actually helps is a calm kind of honesty, the kind that says, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I've been doing, and I can change one thing this week. I've watched adults transform their English in a way that surprised them, and the pattern is always the same. They stop trying to become perfect. They start trying to become consistent. They stop judging every mistake. They start focusing on connection. Money works the same way. If you want to get unstuck, you don't need to become a completely different person overnight. You need to interrupt one pattern, then another, then another. So let me give you a few real-world situations, because that's where this becomes real. Imagine you're at work and your manager asks you to estimate costs for a project. If you have the habit of avoidance, you might avoid asking questions because you don't want to look inexperienced. You might guess. You might stay quiet. But if you practice the habit of facing reality, you'll ask. You'll say, can we look at the numbers together for a second? Or, I want to make sure I'm understanding the budget correctly. That's strong English. That's professional. And it comes from the same muscle, the muscle of looking at reality instead of avoiding it. Or imagine you're out with friends and they want to go somewhere expensive. If you're using debt like income, you might say yes automatically, then feel stressed later. But if you're building healthier habits, you'll be able to say something simple and normal, like, I'm going to pass this time, but have fun. Or, I'm trying to be careful with money this month. Or, that's a little out of my budget right now. Native speakers say that all the time. And when you say it calmly, people usually respect it. And I know some of you worry about sounding rude. You're not rude for having limits. You're not rude for being honest. If anything, it's mature. Or think about travel. You're in an airport, you're buying food, everything is overpriced, and you feel that pressure. When you have no cushion, every small expense feels personal, like the world is attacking you. But with a little buffer, you can make choices calmly. You can say, I'll grab something small now and eat a real meal later. You can say, I'm not going to spend $15 on a sandwich. And even if you do buy it, you won't spiral emotionally. That's the real win. Now, I want to talk about what keeps people trapped in these habits, because it's not just lack of knowledge. Most people already know what they should do. They know they should save. They know they shouldn't overspend. They know they should pay down debt. Knowledge is not the main problem. The main problem is stress, fatigue, and the stories you tell yourself. A lot of adults carry a story like, I'm just bad with money, or I'll never get ahead, or I always mess this up. And when you believe that story, you act like it's true. You don't even fully try, because trying would create hope, and hope feels dangerous when you've been disappointed before. This is another place where English learners are so similar. People say, I'm just not good at languages. I always freeze. I always forget words. But that's a story, not a fact. And when you change the story to something more accurate, like, I'm improving, but I get nervous, then your brain starts cooperating. If you want to break money habits, you need a new story that's believable, not fake positivity. Something grounded like, I'm learning to handle money better, or I'm getting more disciplined, or I'm getting back on track. That phrase, getting back on track, is powerful. It implies you're not broken. You're just adjusting. Let's also talk about comparison. Comparison is gasoline on money anxiety. You see other people traveling, buying homes, wearing nice clothes, and you assume they're doing well, but you don't know their situation. You don't know if they're in debt. You don't know if they have family money. You don't know what pressure they're under. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. A simple mental habit that helps is this. Focus on your next best step, not someone else's results. Your next best step might be checking your accounts, canceling one subscription, cooking at home 3 nights this week, putting a small amount into savings, asking for a raise, updating your resume, having one honest conversation with your partner. Those steps are not glamorous, but they work. And if you want to connect it to English, it's the same. Stop comparing your speaking to someone else's speaking. Compare yourself to your past self. Are you a little faster than last month? Are you a little calmer? Are you willing to speak even when you're not perfect? That's real growth. Now, I want to help you with something very practical. The way native speakers talk about breaking bad habits with money, because part of confidence is having simple, natural phrases ready, not fancy vocabulary, just real phrases. People say, I'm trying to get my finances together. They say, I'm trying to be more intentional. They say, I'm cutting down on eating out. They say, I'm saving up for something. They say, I'm rebuilding my savings. They say, I'm living below my means. They say, I'm trying to stop impulse buying. That phrase, impulse buying, is common. It means buying without planning, in the moment, emotionally. And when people make a mistake, they often say, I got carried away, or I overspent this weekend, or I went a little overboard. Overboard is a great word. It means too much. Like, you went too far. You can use it for spending, for talking, for anything. And the tone matters too. Native speakers often talk about money in a casual, slightly humorous way to reduce stress. Not to avoid reality, but to keep it human. Like, yeah, I'm trying to recover from last month. Or, my wallet needs a break. That doesn't mean they're not serious. It means they're not drowning in shame. If you can learn to talk about money in a calm way, you'll feel calmer about it. And if you can learn to talk calmly about your English, you'll feel calmer speaking it. It's all connected. Now let me give you a mindset shift that I've seen change everything for adults. The goal is not to never make a mistake. The goal is to recover quickly, because you will overspend sometimes. Life happens. You will forget a bill sometimes. You will make an emotional purchase sometimes. That's not the end. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who move forward is how they respond after the mistake. Stuck looks like this. I messed up, so I might as well give up. I already failed, so who cares? I'll start next month. Unstuck looks like this. Okay, that wasn't great. What can I do today to reduce the damage? What's one small correction I can make right now? That's the same as English. You will say the wrong word. You will misunderstand someone. You will blank in the middle of a sentence. The question is not, will that happen? The question is, can you recover without panic? Can you laugh a little, rephrase, and keep going? And I'll tell you something I've noticed after teaching adults for years. The students who become fluent are not the ones who make the fewest mistakes. They're the ones who stop being afraid of mistakes. They become resilient. They get comfortable sounding human. So if we bring it back to those 6 habits, here's the emotional core of breaking them. You're building a relationship with reality. You're building the ability to look at the truth without collapsing. You're building the ability to feel an emotion without needing to spend. You're building awareness of your patterns. You're choosing consistency over perfection. You're choosing to live within what you can actually support. And you're building a cushion so life doesn't knock you down every time it surprises you. If you do that, you get something that's worth more than any one financial trick. You get peace. You get stability. You get that feeling that you can handle things. And when you feel that, your English improves too, because your nervous system is calmer. You have more mental space. You're not in survival mode. Now, I want to end with a simple challenge you can take into this week. Not a huge plan, not a complete life makeover, just something you can actually do. Pick one moment that you usually avoid. Maybe it's checking your bank account. Maybe it's looking at your subscriptions. Maybe it's opening a credit card statement. Maybe it's writing down what you spent yesterday. Pick one small moment of truth and do it calmly. Take a breath, look at the number, and say in your head, in English, okay, this is where I'm at. I can work with this. Then pick one tiny action that creates a cushion. Move a small amount into savings, even if it feels small. Or set it aside. Or decide that this week you're going to cook one more meal at home. Or cancel one subscription. 1. The goal is to prove to yourself that you can change direction. And while you do that, practice 1 or 2 simple money phrases out loud. Something like, I'm trying to be more careful with money right now. Or, I'm cutting back this month. Or, I'm saving up for something. Say it while you're driving. Say it while you're making coffee. Get those words into your mouth so they feel normal. Because a big part of fluency is not just knowing words, it's making them familiar. You don't need perfect English to talk about real life. And you don't need a perfect financial system to make progress. You need honesty, consistency, and a little courage. And if you're listening to this, you already have that courage. People who don't have courage don't work on themselves. They don't care. You care. So take the pressure off. Take the shame off. Face one number. Change one habit. Say one real sentence in English. And then do it again next week. That's how people get unstuck. That's how confidence is built. Quietly, repeatedly, in the real world.